Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to watch Fight World!
When a UFC fighter gets caught, it brings the crowd to their feet and you can feel the excitement in the air. But when it happens in a matter of seconds, it's a clip that will go viral for years and something MMA fans will always remember. Here are the 10 fastest knockouts in MMA history. Number 10. Gray Maynard vs. Joe Vares, 9 seconds. In his return at UFC Fight Night 11 on September 19, 2007 in Las Vegas, Nevada, Gray Maynard stepped into the octagon for only the second time since his stint on The Ultimate Fighter. Maynard had a lot of hype behind his name opening the card in a fight with UFC newcomer Joe Vares. Immediately after the bell rang, Maynard backed Vares up and threw a left hook that dropped Vares just 5 seconds in. He then added some ground strikes and the referee stepped in at 4:51 of the first round. Just like that, Maynard went down in the history books with one of the fastest KOs in UFC history. Jairzinho Rozenstruik also tied Maynard for 10th with his 9-second KO over Alan Crowder in June 2019. Number 9. Amakhani vs. Andy Ogle, 8 seconds. On January 24, 2015, Amakhani had a memorable UFC debut in Stockholm, Sweden. The Finnish prospect faced UFC veteran Andy Ogle, who was on a 4-fight losing streak and fighting for his job. To start the fight, Amakhani sprinted at Ogle and landed a flying knee that staggered the veteran. He then landed a brutal uppercut that dropped him and finished him over the ground and pounded just 8 seconds into the fight. The bout would also serve as Ogle's final professional MMA bout. Number 8. Leon Edwards vs. Seth Bachinski, 8 seconds. On April 11, 2015 in Poland, Edwards lost to Claudio Silva in his UFC debut and faced Seth Bachinski, who lost by KO to Alan Juban. To open the fight, it was Bachinski who was the aggressor and used punches to the body and head. Yet the Brit responded in huge fashion with an overhand right that dropped Bachinski. He ended it with ground and pound shots 8 seconds into the fight. Number 7. James Irvin vs. Houston Alexander, 8 seconds. Irvin faced Houston Alexander, who was coming off his first loss in the octagon and looking for redemption. Before the match started, the two touched gloves, circled around, and Irvin threw a Superman that connected and dropped Alexander. He then added 2 ground and pound shots that knocked him off balance in 8 seconds. Irvin then went on to headline a UFC show in his next bout, losing to Anderson Silva. Number 6. Frye vs. Thomas Ramirez, 8 seconds. At UFC 8 on February 16, 1996, Frye faced Thomas Ramirez to open the tournament. Ramirez was considered a heavy-hitting KO artist as he weighed in at 410 pounds, but that didn't help him. Instead of starting the fight, Frye hit Ramirez early and then landed a right hand that froze Ramirez. Frye would win the entire UFC 8 tournament. Number 5. Ryan Jimmo vs. Anthony Peroche, 7 seconds. At UFC 149, Jimmo made his UFC debut against Peroche, who was on a 3-fight winning streak inside the octagon. Before the fight began, the pair touched gloves, and the very first and only blow of the fight was a big punch straight from Jim that hit Peroche in the chin and knocked him out cold within 7 seconds. Number 4. Chan Sung Jung vs Mark Hominick, 7 seconds. At UFC 140 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada on December 10, 2011, Chan Sung Jung kicked off the main card with a bang. Jung called out Hominick's, so it was considered a big fight, as Hominick's last fight was against Jose Aldo for the UFC featherweight belt. The man they called the Korean Zombie made good on his words when Jung came out, touched gloves, and as Hominick missed a big right hand, dropped in with a punch. The brutal ground and pound began before the referee entered the game. Number 3. Todd Duffee vs Tim Hague, 7 seconds. In 2009 in Portland, Oregon, Todd Duffee made his UFC debut against the late Tim Hague. The Canadian was coming off his UFC debut in The Hague where he submitted Pat Barry, so it was a battle of prospects. Going into the fight, commentators broke down that the fight would come down to who landed first. Well, that's exactly what happened when Duffee landed a huge right hand just 2 seconds into the fight that dropped the Canadian and used some ground and pound to knock Hague out cold. Number 2. Duane Ludwig vs Jonathan Gullet, 6 seconds. On January 16, 2006, Ludwig faced Jonathan Gullet in Ludwig's return to the UFC. Before the bout began, both men circled, and the first punch was a hard one from Ludwig that landed perfectly on Gullet's chin, freezing him out in 6 seconds. Number 1. George Masvidal vs Ben Askren at UFC 239, 5 seconds. Arguably the biggest knockout in UFC history is also the fastest. At UFC 239, Masvidal and Askren were ready to settle their differences inside the octagon. Askren was victorious in his UFC debut against Robbie Lawler a few months earlier, and Funky was expected to win the title if he won. However, Masvidal stuttered to start the fight, and as Askren ran to the center of the cage looking for a takedown, Gamebird landed a flying knee that knocked Askren out. The win catapulted Masvidal into superstardom and handed Askren his first ever loss. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring sports stories like this one. Until next time, keep pushing forward and never give up on your dreams.